Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world without smartphones, without social media, without instant replies. A world where silence wasn't awkward, it was normal. Where children disappeared after breakfast and returned only when the streetlights came on. If you grew up in the 1970s, this wasn't imagination, this was life. And it quietly shaped one of the most psychologically resilient generations in modern history. Today, we explore the psychology of people who grew up in the 1970s, how that decade shaped their minds, values, and emotional strength. 1. A childhood of freedom. Children of the 1970s were raised with something rare today: freedom. No GPS tracking, no constant supervision, no digital footprints. They walked to school alone, solved conflicts face to face, learned the world through scraped knees, broken toys, and real consequences. Psychologically, this created independence at an early age. Mistakes weren't disasters, they were lessons. Fear didn't paralyze them, it trained them. This generation learned self-trust long before self-help books told them to. 2. Emotional toughness without emotional talk. Here's something fascinating. People raised in the 1970s were emotionally strong, even though emotions were rarely discussed. There were no therapy conversations at the dinner table, no labels for anxiety or burnout. You felt it, dealt with it, and moved forward. This didn't mean emotions were ignored. It meant emotions were processed internally. Psychologists call this emotional self-regulation. They learned resilience not by talking about pain constantly, but by surviving it. That's why many from this generation appear calm during chaos. They've already lived through uncertainty and survived. 3. The value of patience. In the 1970s, nothing was instant. You waited for letters, you waited for phone calls, you waited for results. And waiting didn't feel like suffering, it felt normal. This trained the brain in delayed gratification, one of the strongest predictors of long-term success and mental stability. People from the 1970s don't panic when things take time. They trust the process, because their entire childhood was a process. 4. Social skills built in the real world. Before screens taught people how to communicate, life did. Arguments happened face to face. Friendships were built on shared experiences, not shared posts. Silence wasn't filled with scrolling, it was filled with thought. This generation developed deep listening skills, strong eye contact, and intuitive understanding of human behavior. They learned body language before emojis, tone before text, presence before performance. That's why many of them still value real conversations, not virtual ones. 5. Work ethic and identity. For people raised in the 1970s, work wasn't just income, it was identity. They watched parents work without complaining. They learned that effort came before reward, and quitting wasn't a personality trait, it was a last resort. This shaped a psychology of commitment. When they promise something, they mean it. When they start something, they finish it. In a world of quick exits, this generation stands out for staying. 6. Why they seem different today. Today's world moves faster, louder, constantly connected, and people from the 1970s often feel different. Not disconnected, just grounded. They don't chase validation online. They don't panic over trends. They don't measure self-worth in likes. Their psychology was built before the noise, and that foundation still holds. The psychology of people who grew up in the 1970s is not outdated, it's rare. They carry patience in an impatient world, resilience in a sensitive era, depth in a distracted society. They are proof that growing up slower sometimes makes you stronger. And maybe, just maybe, the world doesn't need to move faster. Maybe it needs to remember how this generation learned to stand still and stay strong.